Talk us through the year, how it started and...
So it started with Nick and I separating, and then very soon after I was unaware that I was pregnant. I had a miscarriage. And then me and Eddie moved back to England from Spain. I decided it was really important for Eddie to be nearer Nick. We hadn't seen enough of him whilst we were in Spain, and Eddie was growing and asking about his family. 6 weeks of bleeding between periods, and I just thought, I've had a miscarriage, I'm stressed. I don't want to go to the doctors, because as a mum, if you want to go to the doctors, you have to organise childcare and all the things that you do when you put your health on the back burner. And eventually I started to feel really run down. So I said, OK, I'm going to go to the doctor and I'm going to get an anemia test, because I get quite run down. And
so at no point you thought that it was anything more than that?
No. And I think as women as well, I'd been on contraception for the last 10 years, and you learn not to trust your body. Sometimes I would continue to if I was on holiday and I didn't want a period, I would take the patch through, and so you sort of have false periods and you don't trust your body. And I went for an anemia test, and the doctor said, oh, you had your last smear at 25, you're 28, you're due one. And I had a smear, and it didn't ever occur to me in a million years that it would come back with abnormal results.
So when you got the call to say, well, I'm afraid we have got some abnormal results, what was going through your head at that point?
Again, I thought, yeah, I'm 28, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I'm really healthy. It's quite common. Abnormal results are quite common. And it wasn't until I went for the colposcopy, which is the examination you have upon having abnormal results, that she said you have severe precancerous cells.
And what was the first thing you thought of?
Probably Jade Goody. Yeah, I think that's, if you hear cervical cancer, you think of Jade. And that's terrifying, and you think, oh, I'm 28, I have a young child like Jade, and...
Yeah, and so your son's obviously right up there in your mind.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because of Jade, screening went through the roof.
Yeah.
A much greater sense of awareness. Is screening in itself the answer?
I think screening from the age of 25 is vital, but I think symptom awareness, so bleeding between periods, pain during sex, bleeding after sex, unusual discharge, and lower back pain. They could be a multitude of things, but if you experience any of those symptoms, and if you're under 25 and you're experiencing those symptoms, you can request a smear test. But from the age of 25, regularly have your smear test and be aware of those symptoms.
You went through an operation. Thankfully, you've got the all clear, which is tremendous news. Then you had to tell Eddie.
Yes.
Everything was OK.
You know, a terribly difficult time for you, but then, you know, after you and Nick had split, a difficult time for you as a couple, because you obviously needed support with Eddie. How did the two of you work that through?
We were so fortunate that Nick's work were really understanding. So Nick was able to be at home with Eddie and give him a normal, happy home life whilst all this was going on. And that was just wonderful to not have to worry about that, and to know Eddie was with his dad and having a good time.
And who was looking after you?
My mum. My mum was absolutely amazing. And I think one of the hardest things about having cancer for me personally was the guilt I felt on everybody else. When my doctor told me I had cancer, I looked at my mum's face, and it was the worst thing that I could have done, because I just know as a mum myself, I take it 100 times over Eddie having it. And I think for my mum to have to go through that was really hard.
And what about life now? How are you feeling about life now? You've come through that.
Yeah.
Obviously, you, Nick, you know, are still apart, and you're a single mum.
Yeah.
How are you dealing with life, and has it changed the way you think about life going through something like that?
I think it can't not. When you're truly faced with your own mortality, I think it can't help but help you focus and what you want to do. And the little things for me are the big goals. So getting strong enough to pick Eddie up. Those are my
How long
priorities.
do you think before you'll be able to do all that?
Not long, a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I was back in hospital last Monday. I collapsed at my doctor's. Lymphocysts are quite common after surgery. There's fluid in the groin, but mine was pressing on a nerve. So I was back in hospital, so that's put me back a little bit.
But Jessica, whatever your operation, people seem to think the operation's the answer. That's it, over, you'll be okay after that. The recovery process, I think a lot of people just underestimate what's involved.
It's hard, and thanks to your wonderful team, I look quite nice today, but I've still got scars. I've got compression stockings I've got to wear for 6 months because unfortunately they found cancer in my pelvic lymph nodes, so they've gone as well. And it's hard because everybody just says, you're better, and you don't feel sort of better. You're still sort of trying to cope with what you've been through.
As you said, so much of it as well is about prevention. It's about listening to your body, noticing the symptoms. And I'm still shocked to say in the period from 2014 to 2015, 1 in 3 women called for a smear test didn't turn up.
Yeah, I think we do put our health on the back burner. There's a wonderful charity and website, Joe's Trust. It's the only dedicated cervical and abnormality charity. And they've got so much information on there. And for women that have any questions regarding cervical cancer or abnormalities and why it's so important, that's a brilliant place to look. And should you find yourself in the situation I was in, their support services are amazing. I would climb into bed at...
You'll be a great help to many, many people watching, and may that recovery continue to go well, and may you stay well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.
For more of the same, just click here, and don't forget you can subscribe for even more of these amazing videos exclusive to our channel.
I was driving to therapy and I got caught in a bit of traffic. I was looking for any excuse not to go, so I just turned the car back around. And I was really pleased with Mandy because a lot of people would have gone, oh, she just don't want to turn up. But what it was so raw going through the therapy experience that actually all the things you've buried over the years, you are now digging back up.